Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into some really fascinating source material. It details this period of huge, often chaotic, and ultimately, well, crushing transformation for the press in Arad. We're basically tracing how local journalism went from the end of World War II in '44 right through the communist takeover. Our mission really is to see how these local papers, which were, culturally vital, were so quickly co-opted, stripped of their independence, all in just a few years. We kick off right at that pivotal moment, August 23, 1944. Romania exits the war, the Communist Party, banned before, suddenly surfaces, and they need a platform. Fast, their agenda. Pretty clear from the get-go. Push anti-fascism, get northern Transylvania back, and crucially soften the ground for the Bolshevik transformation that was coming.
And Arad was important, it was a big industrial center, so Bucharest actually pushed hard, gave support to launch the first post-war Romania paper there. Patriotul, it means the Patriot, hit the streets September 24th, 1944.
Just like that.
Pretty much. And its mission statement was explicit. The press organ of the anti-fascist struggle, the people running it, pro-Soviet provisional leaders, right from day one.
Okay, so the first official paper arrives.
Yeah.
And what's the first big story? Not grand politics, surprisingly. It's local economic chaos, right?
Yeah.
Patriotul launched literally 2 days after a short but messy 9-day Hungarian occupation ended.
Exactly. That occupation left a real mess, especially with currency. Hungarian troops brought in the pengam, they set the value way too high. Local shopkeepers, merchants, they took big losses. And Patriotul's first issues really hammered this. The enemy caused economic pain. That was the message.
And this is fascinating, isn't it? A key lesson in editorial control, even before formal censorship kicks in. Right after the Hungarians leave, the Red Army rolls in, and they introduce their currency, the Soviet ruble, also at a massively favorable rate compared to the local Russian leu. A huge disruption.
Huge disruption, yeah.
So the paper is all over the pengam problem, the defeated enemy's fault. But the ruble issue, caused by the new Soviet allies.
Crickets. Almost nothing.
Strategic silence.
It's the first real sign, isn't it? What you don't print matters just as much as what you do. This really set the stage. And that takes us into, well, phase one, the fight for the Hungarian community to get its own voice. The local Hungarian People's Union, the MNSZ, they were left-wing. They knew they needed a paper. Post-war democratization was happening. They had to engage.
Makes sense. But they hit roadblocks. Delays for months, I read.
They did. The local activists wanted it, pushed for it, but the higher-ups, especially in Bucharest, didn't see a Hungarian paper in Arad as, quote, urgent.
Why? What was the holdup politically?
Well, the sources suggest it was timing and politics. Hungary itself was still occupied by Germany. Fighting was still going on. So politically, maybe giving a big platform to Hungarian voices in Romania right then, it wasn't seen as the right moment. Not until the power structure, the Soviet alignment, was clearer.
Right, okay. So when approval finally came in April '45, it wasn't really about culture or press freedom.
Not really, no. The sources are quite explicit. Approval was granted on purely propaganda grounds. They realized, look, we need to mobilize the Hungarian population for the upcoming elections, for this democratic transformation. We need a Hungarian paper to do that effectively. State needs first.
And that's how Jövő the Future came about, April 29, 1945. And it was immediately vital, wasn't it? I saw that line from its second issue.
Oh, yeah. Powerful stuff. Writing in Hungarian is not only a right, but also an obligation. It really underscores the need it filled. This paper became essential for informing Hungarian readers about massive changes. Things like the aftermath of the Jewish deportations from northern Transylvania, the formation of new governments, Senatescu, Radescu. People needed to understand this stuff.
So phase one gets the voice established. Phase two, 45 to 48, seems to be about controlling that voice. But first, the practicalities. What was it like actually producing this paper?
Oh, the conditions were, well, shocking. Primitive, really. Jövő started in temporary offices. The equipment, scavenged, literally put together from scrap metal salvaged from printing presses dismantled during the war.
Oh, yeah.
Print quality was poor. And photographs. Almost none in the early days. The tech just wasn't there. It was a shoestring operation carrying huge political weight.
And yet, they immediately got competition, just days later.
That's right. Szabadság Freedom launched May 3rd, 1945. Run by the Social Democrats.
And Szabadság got to break the biggest news.
It did. The end of the war in Europe, May 8th. Huge headlines, apparently contributed to massive celebrations in the city. So for a brief moment, you had Patriotul, Jövő, and Szabadság. Different angles, sort of.
But that diversity couldn't last, could it?
Oh.
By early '48, Szabadság just disappeared. The sources say it surrendered.
Surrendered is the word used, yeah. It's a bit of a euphemism.
Hmm.
What happened was basically a mix of financial pressure and nonstop political heat from the Communist Party, which was consolidating power fast. Having two Hungarian papers, especially one with social democratic leanings, was seen as messy, disruptive to the new era, so the competition was quietly squeezed out.
And as that external competition died, the internal standards at Jövő started to shift too. Our sources say it wasn't just leaning left, which was maybe inevitable, but it started adopting a tabloid mentality. News just had to be interesting, not necessarily true. That sounds like a major shift.
It's a huge ethical slide, yeah. And it's a key insight into how control works. If you get the public hooked on sensationalism over facts, you weaken their trust in media generally while getting high circulation for your own message. The party clearly valued reach and narrative over accuracy.
And there's that Wiesenmayer example, the former imperial envoy. Jövő runs this splashy story about his arrest.
Sensationalist piece, yeah. Turns out it was false, later denied. But was there an apology? A correction? Nope.
So was that just clickbait, 1940s style, or a deliberate distraction tactic?
Probably a bit of both. But it also set a really important precedent for the journalists themselves. Accountability. Not to the truth anymore. It was accountability to the party line, or just to producing something that sells. That erosion made the next step, formal control, much easier.
Which arrived with the 48 and 52 constitutions, legalizing press control, framed as anti-fascism. But day to day, how did that work for an editor? It wasn't just a simple list of forbidden topics, was it?
No, much trickier than that. The censor's actual list, often secret, even from the editor-in-chief sometimes. So editors were constantly guessing, what's the line today? What will it be tomorrow? To get news, especially foreign news, they fell back on old methods, literally using scissors to cut and paste approved bits from other papers. Or, get this, secretly listening to private shortwave radios that were supposed to have been confiscated during the war.
That sounds utterly exhausting. Guesswork journalism.
Totally. And the result, this mandatory self-censorship, it led to that really bleak newsroom saying, what doesn't appear can't cause problems.
Which leads us right into phase 3, the purge, 1948, 1949, these political verifications, the personnel checks, getting rid of anyone with bourgeois tendencies.
Exactly. And the reasons for getting purged were terrifyingly broad. This black mark of origin could be obvious, like being jailed in the West, but it could also be subtle. Having relatives abroad, relatives labeled kulaks, even apparently telling political jokes or just living in a way the party deemed too bourgeois.
And there's that one specific story. It's almost hard to believe. The experienced journalist fired for penicillin.
Yeah, just incredible. He brought penicillin back from abroad for a sick family member. Penicillin was hard to get in Romania then, but bringing it in, that was an offense. It suggested Western contacts, bypassing the state, skills, experience, didn't matter. Ideological purity, total submission, that's what they wanted.
So the whole hiring philosophy changed overnight. Writing ability, general knowledge.
Yeah.
Secondary.
Utterly secondary. The number one thing, the right personnel file, a clean record.
So the new hires.
Often young, less experienced, recruited straight from party activist groups, the MNSZ, the working class. Loyalty trumped skill every time.
And then the final symbolic act. August 1949, Jövő changes its header, explicitly owned by the County Committee of the Romanian Workers' Party.
And that classic slogan appears right on the masthead. Workers of all countries unite.
The transition complete. Then the name change in December 1950 to Vörös Lobogó Red Flame. Just like the Romanian paper, Flăcăra, the end of an era, really.
Absolutely. Which brings us to phase 4, life under the red flame. Nearly 40 years, 1950 right up to 89. And this period, marked by constant instability within the paper, sources talk about frequent turmoil, purges, heads rolling for tiny mistakes, minor negligence. Editors-in-chief came and went constantly.
And there were external pressures, too.
Yeah.
Arad got downgraded administratively in 1950, right? Lost its major city status until 68. How did that affect the paper?
Big impact. It limited their autonomy, their focus. Arad had this long, proud press history, so it was a bit humiliating. Suddenly, Vörös Lobogó had to dedicate loads of space to covering stuff happening in Timișoara, the new regional capital. It diluted their local focus, their connection to Arad readers.
But then, after 68, when Arad got its county status back, something interesting happened. Resilience.
Yes, exactly. A period of, let's say, creative maneuvering. The editorial team got stronger, new university graduates came in, they still had to publish all the mandatory political stuff, endless 5-year plan reports, economic updates, you know the drill. But They got clever.
How so?
They started introducing these really innovative, engaging columns that were deliberately apolitical, things to actually draw readers in. Columns like With Open Eyes used subtly to criticize minor local problems, bureaucratic issues, not the party itself. A popular court journal covering local crime, sports sections, literary reports.
So filling the paper with things people actually wanted to read, alongside the required party doctrine. Like a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down.
Pretty much. The party needed the circulation, right, to seem legitimate, to get the main message out. A purely dull party paper wouldn't be read. So allowing these other columns kept readership up. Apparently circulation climbed back near that 12,000 post-war peak for a while. But it was a deal with the devil for the editors. Maintain readership that deliver the propaganda.
But that space, that wiggle room, it eventually vanished. The final years, from 81 onwards, the walls closed in.
Completely. Autonomy gone. It became mandatory. A party official or county council leader had to be on the editorial board. And anything translated from the main Romanian paper, Flăcăra Roiei, had to be pre-approved by the propaganda department first. Imagine the late nights, the pressure, checking every single word. Formal censorship might have technically eased off in those last years, but the self-censorship, the psychological weight, it became unbearable, that constant scrutiny, the fear. Vörös Lobogó's circulation apparently plummeted in the final years of the dictatorship. The source calls that self-censorship a subtle trick that didn't just risk your job, but your very integrity.
It's quite a journey we've traced. From figuring out currency chaos in '44.
The penger versus the ruble?
Yeah.
To getting fired years later for trying to get medicine for your family. Incredible.
It really is. And yet, despite all that political manipulation and that pressure, Jövő and later Vörös Lobogó, they still performed a crucial cultural role. They helped restore some sense of normalcy, maybe even joy, for the Hungarian community, whose identity was hit so hard by the war. They were cultural anchors, even while being political tools.
That duality is really striking. Tools of control, but still serving a basic human need for connection, for local stories.
Absolutely. And it leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? We saw how devastating mandated self-censorship was, summed up by that awful phrase, what doesn't appear can't cause problems. Right. So thinking about today, even without an official censor breathing down our necks, how might things like institutional memory or subtle pressures within organizations, maybe even just job insecurity, how might those things create a kind of hidden self-censorship in newsrooms now? That mechanism. It still warrants reflection, I think.